Welcome everyone, welcome back to Talks from Uncle Trev. We've been looking at the life of Joseph and his brothers. Can you remember what happened in last week's talk? The brothers decided that they were going to kill Joseph. But then Reuben came up with a plan not to kill him, but just to put him down the cistern. And then later, it was Judah who decided that they should sell Joseph to the Ishmaelite traders who were on their way to Egypt. Now, before we carry on with the story of Joseph, the Bible takes a bit of time to tell us more about one of the other brothers, about Judah, the one who decided to sell Joseph to the Ishmaelite traders. Now, the Bible tells us this because Judah actually went on and did something really, really bad. He'd already done something really bad to Joseph. Now Judah does something equally as bad to another member of his family. And right at the end of that story, Judah suddenly realizes how bad he is. And it's almost like a turning point in Judah's life. Now, when you're a bit older, maybe you'll be able to read that chapter for yourself. But we're going to carry on now with the life of Joseph. So Joseph entered into Potiphar's house. Now remember, Potiphar was a really, really important man. He worked for the Pharaoh, for the king. He was the captain of the guard. So Potiphar set Joseph, his slave, to work. And within a very short time, Potiphar could see that Joseph was an excellent worker. Whatever he was given to do, Joseph did really, really well. God blessed Potiphar's house. And so Potiphar promoted Joseph. That means he gave him a bigger job to do because he could really, really trust him. In fact, he put him in charge of all his house. He put him in charge of all his servants. The servants who worked indoors and the servants who worked out in the fields. He put him in charge. And Joseph did a really, really good job. And Potiphar was really pleased with Joseph. Now Potiphar had a wife, and she was keeping a very close eye on Joseph. One day, she came very close to Joseph and asked him to do something that Joseph knew was really, really wrong. If Joseph did this thing, he'd be letting Potiphar down and he'd be letting God down in heaven. So he said to her, "No, I'm not prepared to do the thing you're asking me to do. Potiphar has trusted me with his whole house. He's trusted me with everything. If I do this thing that you're asking me to do, I'll be letting him down." Every day, Potiphar's wife kept asking Joseph to do this terrible thing. And Joseph kept refusing. In fact, Joseph tried to stay away from her. He tried to make sure he was never in the same room as her. But one day, Joseph went into the house and none of the servants were there. But Potiphar's wife was. She came up really close to him and she pleaded with him to do this thing that Joseph knew was really, really wrong. "No," said Joseph, "if I do this thing, I'll be sinning against God. I'm not prepared to do it." She came closer to him and closer to him, and she grabbed hold of his cloak, and he pulled himself away in fear, and he ran out of the house. but she was left holding his cloak. Now you can imagine how Potiphar's wife felt. This Hebrew slave had refused to do what she had asked him to do. So she quickly called all her servants together and she told them a really big lie. She had told them that Joseph had come to her and that he had basically tried to attack her. And that she'd screamed out in terror and that then he had panicked and he had run out the house. But he had left his cloak behind him. And here it was. Later that night, her husband came home from work. And she went straight to Potiphar and said, that Hebrew slave, he basically attacked me. And then he left behind his cloak. What are you going to do about it? Well, Potiphar was furious. He was so angry with Joseph. So he took Joseph, he gave Joseph to his servants, and they threw him into prison. Now the prison that they threw him into was the Pharaoh's prison, where only the Pharaoh's prisoners were put. Poor Joseph! He'd been betrayed by his brothers, and now this woman had told a terrible lie about him. He had done nothing wrong, and yet he was thrown into this prison. But he was not alone, because God was with him. So there are two really important lessons that we can learn today from Joseph. The first one is that Joseph was a really good worker. He could be trusted by Potiphar to do a really, really good job. Potiphar gave him a little job first, and as he proved himself, Potiphar gave him a more important job. And the most important thing is that Joseph did a really good job. He did it as if he was doing it for God. All followers of God should be good workers. You should be a good worker in school. Can your teacher trust you to do your best? Maybe if the teacher's working with another group, or maybe if the teacher has gone out the room for a moment. Are you someone who can be trusted to still work at your best, even if the teacher is not watching you? That's what Joseph did. He knew that when he was working, he wasn't just working for himself, he wasn't just working for Potiphar, but he was working for God. So, at school, and maybe when you're older and you get a job, your employer, your boss, needs to be able to trust you. He might have to trust you with his money. He might have to trust you with his time. We shouldn't be lazy. We should be good workers. So the second lesson that we learn from Joseph today is this. He was more concerned about pleasing God than he was about pleasing man, or in this case, pleasing a woman. He had to make a stand for what was right. He knew that if he did what Potiphar's wife wanted him to do, that he would be upsetting God. And he wasn't prepared to do it because he knew that disobeying God was sinful. Now sometimes, as Christians, as followers of Jesus, we need to make a stand. We need to do the right thing. And sometimes that can make us really unpopular. It might make you unpopular with your friends. Imagine you were on the yard and a group of your friends are making fun of another child. They might want you to join in and make fun of that child as well. But you know that's not right because God doesn't want us to be unkind to other people. So you need to make a stand, like Joseph did. You need to say, no, I'm not prepared to do that because that would be upsetting God in heaven. It might mean that your friends don't want to play with you anymore. But you've done the right thing. Or imagine you're doing a test in school. Maybe it's a maths test. Maybe the teacher says that you're not allowed to use a calculator. And you really want to please your mum and dad. And you really want to please your teacher by getting a good score. But you get to a question and you just can't work it out. But you've got a calculator under your desk or in your pencil case. And nobody's watching. You feel really tempted to do the answer on your calculator. But you know that would be cheating. And you know that God is watching. Well, follow the lesson of Joseph. It's more important to please God than to please your teacher or even to please your mum and dad. So do what is right. The right thing is not to cheat. So these are important lessons. Important lessons about doing the right thing and making a stand. And important lessons about being a good worker. Being someone who can be trusted. Hey guys, it's been great talking to you again. I hope you have a great week. You're on your holidays now. So enjoy it. Maybe go back through some of the talks that you've heard over the last few weeks. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care everyone, and bye for now.